Dude, I am so excited for this new Spider-Man movie that's been rebooted for the 3rd time.
You know, I wish there was someone who could tell us what to read for someone who's never been into Spider-Man before.
Boy, you came to the right place.
So there's this new Spider-Man movie coming out that I'm actually kind of excited for. Spider-Man, Tom Holland, was in Civil War, had not like a cameo, but he had a pretty significant part. Trailers for the new Spider-Man is coming out, and I'm like, cool. And I was all hyped for the previous Sony ones, and those were good, and they fell kind of on the wayside. And then the reboot was all, and it actually sucked. So now we have this new Spider-Man movie, and I really want to, actually get started on what Spider-Man's supposed to be.
Okay, so the new Spider-Man movie is about ready to come out. And looking at the character, kind of looking at his back history, where should I start as a new reader jumping into this universe?
That's exactly what I just said!
Well, guys, look around you. It's like I almost came prepared to talk about where to begin reading Spider-Man as a new reader.
Don't start here.
Because
That's a lot of words.
Because there is a lot of confusion as Spider-Man. It's a character that has been around for 55 years. On top of that, you've had the title and rebooted and rebooted and rebooted a lot. So there's a lot of Spider-Man's number 1. Ultimate Spider-Man is a title that came out in 2000.
He's breaking his neck.
Marvel had this idea of, hey, let's revamp the characters and modernize them. So what they did was take these characters that have been around at the time for 40-something years and putting them into the Ultimate Universe. So this is a complete reboot. You don't need to know anything about Spider-Man because the origin is in here, how he got his powers. So it's slight bit different than the 616 universe because that's what the regular Spider-Man is called.
Well, no, you say, okay, the origin story is the same? So is
It's
there
very
still
similar.
Aunt May and still...
Yeah, and Uncle Ben has a
Radioactive
ponytail.
spider.
He's more of a hipster. Aunt May's actually pretty hot, and unlike this really fragile old woman that's portrayed in the original comic book.
She's pretty hot. in this
She's
movie
pretty
now.
hot.
Yeah.
So Ultimate Spider-Man is one that I recommend to people. This is available in original hardcover, or oversized hardcover, sorry. It's also available in trade paperback. It's available in Ultimate Editions, which collects like 13, 14 issues. And it's the first 30-something are available in an omnibus edition. So it's a good place to start. Now let's talk about Spider-Man from the 616. If you wanted to jump into a story, what's a good place to start? Because there are several places that I recommend to people. One of my favorite runs was done by this guy, J. Michael Straczynski. You may recognize the name from a series that he did called Babylon 5. Babylon 5 was written by... All but 5 episodes of Babylon 5 were written by J. Michael Straczynski.
Okay.
And it was only because he let his friends write them. So this kind of reboots Spider-Man in the sense of like, okay, there's so much history between him and Mary Jane, and, he's worked at the Daily Bugle. This kind of makes Peter Parker go, and become a teacher. Right, he gave up the Daily Bugle thing. He's trying to rekindle his love with Mary Jane because they've gone through a lot of shit. But you don't really need to know a lot of that. It's all explained in here. And it also introduces new mythos, like a new, Spider Totem. These new characters that nobody really knew about in the whole history, because apparently there have been several Spider-Man in the past. And it's all introduced through this. And I think he really does a good job with taking all this years of history and just kind of condensing it. So... This is also available in complete collections and original hardcovers, trade paperbacks, and of course everything is available in single issues if you want to spend the money to get that stuff. If you want a really fun book and see Spider-Man interact with other big shots from the Marvel Universe...
From the Marvel Universe of 1992.
The Hulk is still...
Hell Rider?
Hell Rider.
What? Ghost Rider?
Ghost Rider.
Skullhead. That's what I said.
Ghost Rider. This is the one story I was talking about.
Ghost Rider the
Joe
Whip.
Kubert.
Gotcha.
All right.
Right.
So, Sleepwalker. I forgot Sleepwalker was there. This is
man.
90s fun. But it's a good story because it's done by Eric Larson, and it's a story where he teams up with the rest of, like, the Marvel superheroes, like, the characters that were kind of relevant at the time, like Solo and Ghost Rider and Sleepwalker. But
Characters
Thrasher.
I would recognize.
right. And
Samagura.
they go up against the Sinister
Nighthawk.
Six, who are back with a brand new, well, sort of a brand new lineup. But it's just fun to see Peter Parker, Spider-Man, interact with other characters, and it's just a really good, fun book, not to be taken too seriously. The other book I recommend is called Spider-Man Blue. So what Spider-Man Blue does is kind of recounts the stories from Amazing Spider-Man 40 to like 48, but it does it in a 6-issue miniseries. It's all collected in hardcover, and it's also collected in like trade paperback. And it's the story of Peter Parker finding a tape recorder, and he's talking to dead Gwen Stacy. Sorry, spoilers if you don't know Gwen's dead. I don't know where the hell you've been. So, Gwen died, and he's talking to her. Anybody that's kind of read Spider-Man in the past kind of knows how strongly he feels about Gwen. Even though he's married at the time to Mary Jane, even she knows how much he loved her. Because it's just him talking into a tape recorder, talking about how much he loved her, how he wished, he hadn't lost her. And it's just a really good love story and the relationship between him and Mary Jane. But also a fun throwback story because it has all these flashbacks of all these villains, like the Vulture and things like that. So you really don't need to know a lot of history to read that one, and it kind of introduces you into the old way of storytelling. New Avengers introduces a new lineup of Avengers. So you have Luke Cage, Captain America, Iron Man, Wolverine, and Spider-Man, Spider-Woman. They're all thrown into the mix, and it's the first time that we see... Now, Spider-Man's been in the Avengers before, like, for an issue or two, right? But this is the first time that you see Spider-Man kind of interact with other characters as a part of a team.
Why are you laughing?
Because the best line of Spider-Man in the modern era comes from this interaction when he's talking to Steve Rogers. He says, "Will there be pay?" Yeah,
That's where you get all the internet memes where he's picking up money after, like, Iron Man
Right,
leaves.
he
He's
finally
like,
has a full-point job. But once again, you don't really need to know all this 50 years of history of Spider-Man. New Avengers are available as an omnibus, it's available as a hardcover, it's available as a Marvel Premiere hardcover, a trade paperback, so it's available to you. So next up on the list is Spider-Man Big Time.
Big time.
Yes, big time. So, what Dan Slott was able to do, there was a lot of, like, convoluted history up in Spider-Man because they had, like, 5 different, like, writers at the same time that were writing. You had Mark Waid, you had, I almost said Bob Costas, but it's the guy that wrote
Yes,
Back to the
yes,
Future.
Bob Costas.
But anyway, you had all these writers writing Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man at the time, and once they all left, Dan Slott had to pick up everything with a new status quo, because this takes place after Spider-Man made a deal with the devil. Mary Jane and him are no longer married.
Literally the devil.
We don't talk about One More Day, but this takes place after Brand New Day and One More Day, and it's a brand new status quo. He's got a new girl, he's not married anymore, and they do a really good job of, like, just putting all that within the first couple pages, and you're kind of caught up. So I think it's a good jumping on point, especially for new Spider-Man, because it leads up to Superior Spider-Man and then the new Amazing Spider-Man, but this is where it kind of begins. And like I said, Dan Slott, really, really good job. So he's teamed up with Humberto Ramos, and these are available in Marvel Premiere hardcovers, trade paperbacks, I think they're called, complete collections. If you really want to get to, like, the origin, the very beginning, where all the video games, the movies, the Ultimate Universe, whatever everything is based on is the original Spider-Man. Not this. You don't have to get this. This is the omnibus edition of Amazing Spider-Man.
That cover looks really familiar.
Well, this is Alex Ross' take on Amazing Fantasy number 15. Amazing Fantasy number 15 was his first appearance of Spider-Man.
Yep.
Okay.
So this collects Amazing Spider-Man 1 through 38 and the first 2 annuals. So this introduces you to Peter Parker, introduces you to all the cast of characters that you guys are probably familiar with from the movies and the animated series. But this particular collection also has one of the best stories in it, because at this point, every issue of Spider-Man at the time was kind of like self-contained. Mm-hmm. Storylines now in comic books are like, to be continued in next week's episode or next week's comic book, right? Back then, each issue was self-contained, so you got the introduction of the Doc Ock, you got the introduction of the Vulture, the Lizard, and up until you get to 31 through 33, there was a storyline that kind of continued into the next month's issue, and that was If This Be My Destiny. And that is, if anybody were to choose like their favorite Spider-Man, that is ranked up there as like top 5 best Spider-Man stories.
And when was this written?
This is in 1962, 63.
60s.
If This Be My Destiny, it was probably 65, 66.
Yeah.
Stan Lee, Steve Ditko at their best. It's just the story of Spider-Man graduating high school and going to college, and there's this scene where he's getting crushed by this big giant machine, and he's using his spider might to hold it up, and he's thinking about all these characters, like Gwen, will he ever see her again, or Uncle Ben, how it was his fault that Uncle Ben died. So it's a really emotional story for, way ahead of its time. And like I said, it's the first of its kind, too. It's like a 3-parter. But that's collected in this, and that's also collected in a Steve Ditko collection. There are also epics that you can get that are a lot cheaper than the omnibus. There's the Masterworks, which unfortunately some of the Masterwork editions are out of print. They collect like the first 10. They collect 10 issues in each Masterworks. Okay. So these are, and they're also available digitally. But that's my suggestion of where I would start reading Spider-Man as a new reader. Like, these are ones that I suggest to people, and I know people bust my balls over Revenge of the Sinister Six, but you gotta represent the 90s. Come on, I threw Bendis in there twice.
Okay, you've run over several books.
7.
Several.
Seven
But
books.
pick one that I should ultimately
that I think you would enjoy?
That I would enjoy.
Honestly, I think Ultimate
reader.
Spider-Man would be, a good book for new readers. It's just a fun take on an old story, and it makes it feel fresh and new.
And this is more like what I would be looking for.
This is more for collectors.
Yeah, I like.
This is more for people that want to. You don't. I mean, for a new reader, nobody's really going to be like, "Gee, I got $100. Let's see what I can buy." No, I'm not going to recommend it.
So we go to the public library.
But I was just showing you this because
Call my wife.
This collects a lot of the stories that are collected in other editions, like Epic editions. Epic is the new line of Marvel comics that are like $40 for about 20-something issues. So I think that's the way I would go. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you're a new reader to Spider-Man, I hope I was able to help you out. If you're an old reader, please tell me what I forgot, because honestly, that's what I think the list should be for new readers. Don't forget to like, comment, and if this is your first time watching this show, don't forget to subscribe.
Sorry, it just seems ridiculous.
One of the most...
Has anyone ever broken their neck since he did that in the same fashion? No, because...
That's because he learned.
Yeah, you learn from your mistakes. Oops, I ain't losing another white bitch like that. Mary Jane, you stay your ass up here.